The new house. In 1990, we moved into my parents' first and only home they purchased together. It was a 40-foot by 60-foot standard double-wide looking floor plan, built on a foundation. It was a framed home, but just the most simple, standard, unfinished basement ranch house you could get. It sat on a little over an acre of land, 2.5 miles from the big little town in the valley that we lived in. It had a short, fat gravel drive, and Dad eventually added a wraparound deck and a utility tool shed. We had a clothesline that we used year-round because we couldn't afford a dryer for the first few years. Then, when they purchased one, the natural gas propane to run it cost so much, we used the clothesline in warmer weather. Behind the house, where the basement had an exit door, there was this huge trench. It was as deep as the basement and as wide as the house. It had to have been 30 to 40 feet long before tapering into the back of the property. I've driven past this house since moving from it, and there's a massive addition that fills this trench now. The loop we lived on had only one other house on it, right at the top at the time. This little place was already the beginnings of someone's homestead property. We loved going to visit and interact with their animals. Right across from our house, that was tucked into the northwest corner of the road, across from the loop, was a middle-aged guy. He was divorced, and his kids were in their teens, but lived with their mom. Kitty corner across the road from the back, northeast corner of us, was a couple in their late 40s to early 50s. The youngest of their kids were twin boys that were in middle school when we moved in, so they were like the cool big brothers I didn't have. That was it. That was the neighborhood I spent my childhood in, surrounded by hay and cattle fields, playing with the neighbors' ducks and riding my bike under the warm mountain sun, chasing grasshoppers through the fields and catching water skeeters and minnows on the creek that ran behind us in the pasture. When the wind was just right, you could smell the dairy farm that was a couple miles down the road, farther from town. There was a gun club that had a range past that I used to ride my bike down to in the summer to shoot my Marlin 22 long rifle. I remember my older sister sitting on the wood fence that my dad strung across the west side of our yard, singing to the cows on numerous occasions. We had our own world out there. There was one winter it snowed so much it filled the trench behind the house. 8+ feet of dense, heavy, wet, packed snow. The basement still wasn't finished. This was the winter of all winters. We were all homeschooled at the time. Dad worked the 9 to 5 at a place that made airplane parts for the government. Don't worry, his, quote, higher education placed him right in the tool crib, inventorying parts and taking orders from assholes that had to take orders from assholes. The American dream. That winter, we spent most of our time digging, glazing, and perfecting a snow cave tunnel system in the backyard, hauling a bucket full of snow back into the cement floor basement so it would drain out and melt so we could dig faster. The tunnel went from the basement access door to the surface of the valley behind the house, and went all the way out to the edge of the property where we ran into the top of the barbed wire fence behind the house. We even slept in the snow caves one night. It was amazing. We had all the time in the world to explore the environment around us. I look back now and I kick myself for not appreciating it more then. My parents tried to give us a good life, I think.